Hi friends, today I'm going to take you through a very simple seascape that will give you gorgeous reflections on the water. You'll start off by drawing your horizon line about 2/3 of the way down your page, and then brush your paper with water. You want a nice even sheen here. Your paper should be wet but not dripping. I'm checking the reflection in the light here. You can see it bounce off the paper a little bit. And then I'm swiping the water going the other way just to make sure that I have a nice even coat on the paper. Checking that again in the light. You can do that laying flat. I'm just doing it here, holding it up so that you can actually see what I'm doing. And then I'm taking a combination of Alizarin Crimson and titanium white, and you'll focus that just above and just below your horizon line. I'm using a 3/4 inch shader brush right here. This is one of the snap brushes from Princeton, and I'll list everything in the description below for you. And then I'm picking up just a little bit of Payne's gray and working that along the very top of the paper. This will be the top part of the sky. And when you pick it up like this, it just encourages the water that's on the paper to blend those colors together really beautifully. And then I'm using some ultramarine for the water down at the bottom. I grabbed just a little too much, so I'm going to pick up a little bit more water on my brush and then come back in and coax that along over to the right side. You can see it really thins out the vibrancy of that pigment. And then I'm picking up a little bit more of that ultramarine blue, and I'm going to work that along the horizon with the very edge of my brush. That starts to create the main part of the water and just hints at waves off in the distance. And then I'm picking up a little bit more of the blue, so it's a little more concentrated on my brush, and swiping that along a couple different areas. I want to start creating a couple of spaces that have more defined waves to them. The paper is still damp at this point, so these will soften really beautifully. I'm running a little bit of the blue along the entire length of the painting here, and then I'm going to let this dry completely. Now that it's dry, the colors will start showing up with a little bit more of a defined edge. So starting with that ultramarine blue again, and I'm really going to start emphasizing a couple of the waves. You can do this by creating a bit of a jagged edge, and that will mimic the edge of a wave that is starting to curl over as it gets closer to the shore. You can extend that about 2/3 of the way across your painting, and then make a smaller one over on the right side, slightly lower than the one that you just did. And then you can also use this time to correct any imbalance in your horizon line. Since I tend to work with my paper tilted like this, I sometimes have the left side of my horizon line too low. I'm checking that again here by straightening out the painting, and then I'm going to emphasize that side again. So if you also tilt your painting while you're painting, you might want to take a look at that and just make sure that you've got your horizon line straight. And then I'm going to further emphasize the edge of the wave where it starts hitting the shore. Now that we have some of the waves a little bit more defined, we will further emphasize those with some titanium white. You want kind of a medium creamy sort of mix here because you really want that white to stand out along the tops of the waves. Again, make this a little bit of a jagged line. You should vary your brush. Just use the very, very tip of a teensy tiny brush. I'm using a size 0 brush at this point. And after that, I'm mixing some of the white with a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I'm going back in and covering up any areas where some of the red is showing through the main area of the water. I want the main part of the water to be just the blue color, and that red is pretty faint, so it's pretty easy to just go over that with a darker value. And it also adds a little bit more variety in the water itself and makes it look a little bit more realistic. Since watercolor lightens up a bit as it dries, I'm picking up more of a concentrated mix of the blue and then going back underneath those main waves that we did and emphasizing those a little bit more. And then I'm also scattering that in some horizontal lines of varying lengths through the surface of the water, just for a little bit more variety. And then as a finishing touch on the water, I'm using that blue to emphasize the very edge of the water where there would be a little bit more of a shadow. I'm going to concentrate this mostly on the left side of the painting. I picked up a little bit of the Payne's gray there as well, just to knock back the vibrancy of the blue. It was looking a little too intense, and I want this to be more muted overall. And I'm also picking up a little bit of water on my brush just to soften this line a little bit more. I'm also using white to accomplish that as well, just softening up that line and making it a little bit more subtle. And now we will paint our birds. I'm using a very dark mix of the Payne's gray for this, like a dark gray color, not quite black. And you want these to be a few different shapes. So that first bird that I did is really more of a dash. And then the second one is more of a traditional V shape. This one's another dash. I know these are a little tricky to see unless you're watching this on a large TV screen, but hopefully you get the sense. These are really just meant to suggest that there are birds in the air. You don't have to worry too much about getting the shapes super exact. Your mind will place the birds there. That's where it expects birds to be in the sky. So you can alternate V shapes, M shapes, and then slight dash shapes, and that will create a little flock of birds flying across the horizon. And then pick up some water on your brush and keep a little bit of pigment on your brush. So this should be a very faint gray at this point, and we're just going to put the reflection of some of the birds that are flying the highest in the sky. Those would be the most likely to show in the reflection. So we'll pick up about 3 or 4 of those along the edge here. And you want a mirror image of the bird that you put in the sky to be in the water. Then you can remove your tape. This is always the best part, the big reveal. And you have a beautiful coastal scene. My name is Sarah. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon for another tutorial.